Hello everyone, and welcome to another remote sensing lecture video. And in this video, we're going to wrap up our discussion on types of reflection by talking about why type of reflection matters. All right. And you remember in the previous video, we outlined what specular, diffuse, and Lambertian were. So if you were a little bit lost or confused about those terms, I encourage you to go back and rewatch the previous video. But what I want to do is I want to draw to your attention as to why these types of reflection matter. And the way we're going to do that is similar to the video where we talked about why the different pixel values mattered when we talked about radiance versus reflection. And we're going to do something similar here. So what we've done is we have the three different cases: specular, diffuse, and Lambertian reflection. And for each one, we have a blue satellite and a purple satellite, and they're in the same position in each case. They haven't moved. And what we're going to do is we're going to just quickly diagram what they would see under a specular reflection, under a diffuse reflection, and under a Lambertian reflection. And so we're going to have the red here is going to be our ear radiance. And in this case, we're going to have 100. Our ear radiance is going to be 100. And to keep things simple, I'm not going to have you worry about the units. There are units associated with radiance and irradiance, but for this case, we're not going to worry too much about units. We're just going to talk about this in a purely numbers standpoint. So the incoming irradiance is always going to be 100. So what we're going to do is we're going to have specular come in like this. It's going to, that is not going to hit where I want it to hit. We're going to have it come in like this. Going to bounce off, and because it's specular, it all bounces off in one direction, and it's going to hit the sensor. So in this case, looking at the exact same scene at the exact same time, right? The purple sensor would have an irradiance of 100, whereas the blue sensor would measure that exact same scene with a radiance of 0. Right, so even though we're looking at the exact same thing, right, this would get a measurement of 100, and this would get a measurement of 0. So you can already see from specular reflection especially, that it really does affect the measurement, because if you have a satellite over here measuring nothing, because all of the radiance is being directed at this sensor here. So let's jump over here to the idea of Lambertian. So we're going to simplify Lambertian slightly, and we're going to say that it comes in again at a value of 100, and we're going to say that it reflects off in 10 directions . 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's coming off in 10 directions evenly. That means that each one of these, right, each piece would have a value of 10. Right, because there's 10, again, we're simplifying Lambertian drastically here for the case of making the argument, but in this case, there's 10 different directions, and because Lambertian by definition is equal in all directions, right, each one of these would have a value of 10. So that would mean that in this case, right, the blue would have a value of 10, and the purple would also have a value of 10. Now, this is the one that I think we sort of believe remote sensing is that it doesn't really matter as much where you're looking. This is the one that we sort of assume, or in a lot of cases we assume, is that the viewing direction doesn't matter. But in this case, we're only getting 1/10 of the actual radiance, right? Because the radiance is being divided up in 10 different pieces, and each piece has a radiance value of 10. Then finally, we have diffuse, and I think diffuse is the one that we really actually occurs most often. And again, with diffuse, right, we're talking about it coming in one direction, right? The irradiance is coming in one direction. But then the radiance is actually going to be coming out not specularly in one direction, not Lambertian being equal in all, but it's going to be somewhat random. So we might have this one having, say, 70. Maybe some goes this way at, say, 10, and maybe some goes this way at 20. So let me draw the lines so that they actually meet up with the sensor. That might make things a little clearer. Right. So we're going to say that this portion comes off this way. So the incoming is 100, outgoing is 100, incoming is 100, outgoing is 10 in all directions. So in this case, we have the incoming of 100. We're going to say 70 decided to go this way. We're going to say 10 went that way. And we'll say that 20 went that way. And so now if we do that here, right, our blue sensor gets 20 and our purple sensor gets 70. So again, we've sort of simplified this idea, right? It's a lot more complex than this, but just to sort of give you an idea of why the type of reflection matters. It matters because depending on the type of reflection you have, right? If you have specular, if your sensor's in the wrong spot, it's not going to get anything. If you have diffuse, it really depends on where your sensor is. And in Lambertian, it's even in all directions, but you're still not getting the full radiance. So hopefully this made sense. If you have any questions, I encourage you to pause the video, rewind, watch the part you're confused about, and as always, please reach out. Thank you.